morning. It is Thursday, June 4th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Israel brands a Palestinian-led boycott movement a strategic threat after Britain's student union passes a motion to divest Israeli companies money from Israeli companies over the government's West Bank policies. The race is on for FIFA's top job after President Sepp Blatter resigns amid football's biggest corruption scandal. And later on the show, Jewish and Arab Israeli youth explore their respective identities and commonalities. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin in the region, of course. In line with the recent barrage of boycotts and attempts to diverge funds from Israel as a modus operandi to advance the Palestinian plight in the international arena, the CEO of the French telecom firm Orange said he would cut ties with Israel tomorrow, to quote him, if it wasn't so financially prohibitive. In an interview to an Egyptian newspaper, the businessman said his company wished to distance itself from its role in facilitating Israel's occupation or /rule of the Palestinian territories. All this as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out yesterday at the United Kingdom's National Union of Students after the group passed a motion to boycott Israel over what it called the government's violations of Palestinian human rights. After years in which Israeli officials and commentators have loftily dismissed the impact of BDS, which seeks to persuade businesses, artists, governments, and academic institutions to boycott Israel over its long-standing occupation of the Palestinian territories, Israel's new government has in recent days singled out the movement for criticism. Netanyahu called the group, which last year refused to condemn the actions of the jihadist terror group ISIS, hypocritical, said that it is an action it condemned itself. In its action, condemned itself. The new Israeli government has been gearing up its efforts to battle the encroaching throat of global boycott, divestment, and sanction initiatives, as well as upping its rhetoric against those who practice it. Yesterday, in a Knesset meeting on the issue turned heated, with right-wing ministers blasting those active in the BDS movement as anti-Semites in disguise, while ministers from the left claim the government's policies are responsible for the criticism and isolation of Israel. Joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning to you. And for the first, well, not the first time, but very happy to have you here with us, European correspondent Jonathan Satchadati. Usually we see you in a little window via Skype. You're right here in the flesh. It's a wonderful thing. Before we break this down, let's take a look at the following report about this story and break it down from there.
One day after the UK's National Union of Students decided to join the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, reactions in Israel were harsh.
A national student group in Britain voted to support a boycott of Israel. This is less than a year after they refused to support a boycott of ISIS. They boycott Israel, but they refuse to boycott ISIS. That tells you everything you want to know about the BDS movement.
The motion, besides condemning Israel and the IDF, also condemns the British government, saying it is associated with the Israeli crimes by supplying it with weaponry used against the Palestinians during last summer's Operation Protective Edge. The response by the British embassy in Israel was unequivocal as well.
The British government firmly opposes calls to boycott Israel. We are deeply committed to promoting the UK's trade and business ties with Israel as part of the flourishing partnership between the two countries. The reality is one of rapidly strengthening links between British and Israeli universities in science and academic cooperation.
As a countermeasure, leading Jewish donors, including billionaire Sheldon Adelson and tycoon Chaim Saban, will convene an urgent closed-door meeting in Las Vegas this weekend in order to devise a new strategy to curb the wave of anti-Israel activity on campuses, a phenomenon which seems to be increasing. The boycott is seeping into cultural and artistic spheres as well. Just last month, singer Lauryn Hill cancelled her performance in Israel amid pressure by pro-Palestinian groups, and influential musician Roger Waters has long been a vocal advocate of a cultural boycott of the country.
Let's go straight to Ramallah, where we're joined by phone by Dr. Abdallah Abdallah, who is the chair of the political committee of the Palestinian Legislative Council. Good morning to you, Dr. Abdallah.
Good morning.
Okay, let's start first of all. I think the big news this morning that everybody's talking about is the very, very controversial statement by Orange CEO about basically distancing or cutting off ties with the Israeli company they're involved with, if he could, tomorrow. Do you feel that this is some sort of a win for the BDS movement?
Listen, we don't consider this as a battle for winning or losing. This, we are trying to come out of the pressures that are imposed on us by the Israeli occupation. And Israel has to see that its continued occupation is denial of the Palestinian right to statehood and self-determination has a price. Part of the price is this. Now, here, the offer is, let us find a solution that keeps the interest of both parties. Let us go for a win-win solution where there will be no threats, no boycott, no anything else.
But Dr. I know, but Dr. Abdallah, you're saying this to me. At the end of the day, some of the leaders of the BDS movement are against the two-state solution themselves. They have said that.
No. This is, the BDS is only, they do not decide for the two-state solution or not. Because the two-state solution, it is a decision by the political leadership on both countries. If there is a goodwill to reach a solution with the two states, then I believe everything else will follow.
But how can there be goodwill? How can there be goodwill?
Yes.
No, how can there be goodwill if at the end of the day we're hearing what many are describing as blood libel type statements coming out of BDS demonstrations, when the head of Orange wants to distance itself and it's having an effect by a company, by an initiative of the BDS, which clearly is succeeding. As you can see, the Israeli Prime Minister has already called it a strategic threat. So why does not the Palestinian Authority, I'm asking you that, distance itself from the type of organizations such as the BDS?
No. You think when we see that your government is taking every step to suppress the Palestinians, we will be trying to defend your government and its policies. These actions are taken against the policies of the wrong policies of your government. Let these wrong policies stop, then I believe there is a chance of ending all hostilities or attempts to follow each other and try to harm each other.
Okay.
But with the continued oppression, with the continued confiscation of our land, denial of our rights, of our economic development, all these things, of course, we will resort to non-violent action, but because the other option is really to go back to the 90s of last century. This is not good for both of us.
No.
Let us sit down and find out why one people try to suppress the other people, why to deny the rights of the other people. Let us be rational. Let us work for a formula that gives each party what it's complains from or what it's opposed to.
But Dr. Abdallah, I want you to stay with us. Those are optimistic words, but at the end of the day, the actions on the ground spell differently of what is going on. It is nonviolent actions, but that are definitely having an effect on Israel. And please do stay with us as I turn to Tal Shalev. Prime Minister Netanyahu, I mean, up until this point, I think up until the last week, there used to be some sort of a brushing away of between the Israeli administration of these things. Right now, calling BDS a strategic threat.
I don't think there hasn't been actually a brushing away. In the past few years, several Israeli ministers have been trying to raise the issue of BDS. It's not a new issue.
Exactly.
It's the movement is not an issue, but as a movement that is essentially psychological, one that is in a fight and a battle over the international public opinion. In the past few days, they have definitely had significant achievements. It starts out with the FIFA vote, in which Israel did succeed eventually, but the discourse
was out there.
leading there was out there. Then it continued with the NUS. Then it continued with the Orange statement yesterday. And this is, of course, also fueled by the Israeli media, who has been very much involved and very much engaged in discussing this. So definitely in the past week, the Israeli government is presenting this as the new strategic threat on Israel, but it's not a new strategic threat. And we just might add that and remind that the Israeli Prime Minister did not appoint a full-time foreign minister. Instead, he assembled authorities to various Likud ministers on foreign policy issues. Right. And in that case, we have about 4 or 5 ministers competing between them, which one of them will give a stauncher response to these to the BDS appearances. There isn't really.
I think the staunchest one came from the Prime Minister itself.
No, well, yes, but this creates a sense of mess. It creates a sense of chaos. Yesterday, the new Strategic Affairs Minister, Gilad Erdan, who is supposed to be the one concentrating the issue and concentrating
on the efforts to stop BDS,
and kind of in charge of it. Yesterday, he does have his first meeting. He convenes the first special meeting with all of the members of all of the offices. But we have to remember that there's also a political realm here inside too, and this has become something that the ministers are fighting about. So this also creates a much more sense of urgency in the public.
In that respect. But, you know, back to BDS itself, and Dr. Abdallah still on the line with Jonathan Sachadati, European correspondent. This, you know, the student body in the UK, that could be considered a win. At the end of the day, though, BDS is winning in Europe in many ways.
Well, it's been very easy to dismiss this sort of thing over the years, and as Tal has said, the Israeli government has done that. And now, in focusing on it, many who are in favour of Israel and who are against these sorts of boycotts in the UK and elsewhere in Europe are pleased to see the government focusing on this, are pleased to see these statements. But this disjointed effort, this lack of foreign ministry to speak of in any real sense, this lack of foreign minister is only contributing in some ways to this PR attack on Israel, because after all, that's what the BDS movement is. It isn't what it claims to be, which is an effort to economically punish Israel. Israel's doing spectacularly well economically on the international stage compared to many countries. But what it is doing, and that's, as you say, it is winning by doing, is creating a PR message whereby students and other people engaged in politics at a particular level, which isn't necessarily very impactful, are actually finding that the message is seeping through. Something is wrong with Israel. That's about all the message says. It's not specific to settlements, it's not specific to policy, it's not specific to government. When you grill them, they'll say it is. But underneath it all is just a sense of branding Israel as a bad place that needs to be boycotted, and that is having some success. We can laugh at things like Lauryn Hill being the only actual scalp that they have to show for it, but in real terms, the CEO of Orange, exactly, and the National Union of Students has a name at least, even if it's relatively powerless to do anything. So all of these are contributing towards this PR mess, which is something that Israel ought to deal with.
When you look at it, and I agree with Jonathan, when you look at it at the general picture, at the end of the day, this is counter-effective to the two-state solution, because Israel, nobody is discussing Israel's policy, because this has a quite respectful amount of anti-Israel inside it, and not anti-Israel policy. So it actually distracts the discussion from talking about the two-state solution or talking about the settlement policy.
And Dr. Abdallah, with us on the phone still from Ramallah, I want to ask you, and I commend you for always, you know, answering with, okay, let us both sit down at the table. At the end of the day, both you and I know no side is sitting at the table, sadly, right now, and it's a very sad fact. But a group such as BDS, doesn't it stand actually the chance of being called anti-Semitic because of the type of things that they say about Israel that don't always relate just to the fact of the occupation or Israel's rule in the West Bank, rather more expanded than that they are actually sending out an anti-Semitic message?
That's not true, because many Jews are participating in this campaign. They are trying to save Israel from its wrong policies. Remember, Kissinger is not a supporter of the Palestinians, nor he is an enemy or anti-Semitic. There are many people. You don't satisfy yourself with calling them self-haters, those who raise their voices and tell you there is a wrong policy that is harming Israel. They wanted to protect Israel, and we are working with them. We are joining hands with them. We don't want to harm anybody, but we want to be ourselves to be free. Israel will not be satisfied if it continues its occupation and suppression of the Palestinians, whether there is a BDS or there is no BDS. Israel must go back to its principles, to its Judaic values, if there is some way of going back to these values. But for one, we've been negotiating for 22 years. What we are getting more confiscation of our land, more denial of our rights, more detention of our people. We have 16 members of our elected parliament are detained under administrative detention. Is this the way Israel wants to expose itself? Is this the democracy, the only democracy in the area? If they detain 9-year-old boy, they burn people alive. This is not Israel that many friends of Israel or Jews around the world wanted to see. Therefore, go back, look in the mirror, change your policies, accept for your enemy what you accept for yourself. That's the win-win situation that we are offering.
No, that one can be advocating, but Jonathan Satchadar, do you have a point to make?
Well, the issue really over whether or not this is anti-Semitic, which we're finding ourselves engaged in discussions of, really we need to look at exactly how the BDS movement, if we can even call it a joined-up movement, is operating, and how, in effect, the National Union of Students has come out with this vote at the moment in the UK, but when it sat down to vote on ISIS, on condemning ISIS, not on boycotting ISIS, ISIS doesn't really export very much to the outside world in the way that Israel exports an enormous amount of good in terms of economic good and medical good and what have you. But when they won't condemn ISIS because, and this was the important reason, it might have an Islamophobic effect on campus. And then we hear that they will condemn Israel, regardless of any anti-Semitic effect it might have on campus. We can see a very clear distinction between their intentions. It was not all right to condemn the beheading, burning alive of people in cages, etc., of ISIS, but it was okay to condemn the policies of Israeli government, regardless of how that will make Jewish students feel on campus. And it's things like that that make the critics of BDS say that its true aim is not really any specific policy of Israel, but it is the Jewishness of Israel, it is the existence of Israel. And if, as Dr. Abdullah is saying, there was any negotiation that caused there to be a second state, a Palestinian state, as has been offered many times, the feeling is that the BDS movement would never just back down. There would always be more. Whatever proposition was put out there, they would say it's not enough. Whatever it was, they would call for stronger.
Yeah, but that's the discourse that's around the table usually of any kind of negotiation.
But that's the question. That's also part of the question. Is this a conflict about settlements? Is this a disagreement about the settlement policy, or is this a disagreement about the essence of Israel's existence since 1948? That is one of the questions.
And one of the questions that are looming over this entire process. Dr. Abdullah, I want to thank you, but I also, as I tell, I just want to wrap this up with a question to you. This convention in Vegas over the course of the weekend, okay, at the Venetian, Sheldon Adelson, whatnot. Is that something that Benjamin Netanyahu, do we know, is hoping will start some form of a strategy? Is this just the Jewish lobby? Because this, it's one of the headlines that follow this story.
This is a headline because it has sexy names and
it's in Vegas.
And it's in Vegas. The fact is that Adelson and other American billionaires or American contributors, political donors, are definitely involved in this. This is from the American Jewish community. There is especially a concern about the young generation of the Jews that are drifting away, and the BDS can help them drift away from their support for Israel. So this is not a new concern from their point of view. It will be interesting, and a lot of Israel's activities on this in the past few years have been done in cooperation with other international organizations, such as Stand With Us, such as Hillel. So this is just probably going to bring in some new blood and new money for initiatives.
For the initiative. I want to thank you both, and Dr. Abdullah, obviously on the phone, for being with me this morning as we move along. And the other story of this week, FIFA President Sepp Blatter's shocking resignation on Tuesday from the football world's top job has made headline news worldwide. The 79-year-old Swiss, who beat challenger Prince Ali bin Al Hussein of Jordan in last week's vote, resigned on Tuesday amid a widespread corruption investigation that reportedly may include the embattled chief himself. Blatter will stay in power until his successor is chosen, possibly as late as next March, and believes he can use his last months in the job to instigate real reform. Meanwhile, Interpol issued an international wanted person alert for 2 former FIFA officials, including Deputy President Jack Warner and 4 corporate executives, at the request of U.S. authorities as part of the corruption probe. With me in studio is still Jonathan Satchadar, who's a little bit baffled as to why he's sitting here on FIFA. But let's take a look at the following report, then be joined by our sports commentator and break it down from there.
The surprise resignation Tuesday of FIFA President Sepp Blatter, days after being elected to a 5th consecutive term, has thrust the spotlight back on the corruption scandal which has rocked football's governing body. American law enforcement officials were quoted in U.S. media saying Blatter himself was the main target of an investigation by the FBI and federal prosecutors. One official said authorities are attempting to have some of the 14 individuals already indicted in the case testify against Blatter to determine what role he may have played in the scandal.
We are not able to comment further on the nature of other individuals who may or may not be under investigation. This is an ongoing matter. It's an open case, and so we will now be speaking through the courts.
Reports have noted Blatter's advisors are those who pressed him to resign his position. As the investigation rolls on, Interpol on Wednesday issued wanted person alerts, known as red notices, for 2 former FIFA officials, including former Vice President Jack Warner and Nicolas Lioz, former head of the South American Football Association. Meanwhile, elections for the next FIFA president are not likely to be held before December. There is much speculation as to who might fill the role. Many see UEFA chief Michel Platini, a major critic of Blatter's and one of the game's true greats as a player, as the current favorite. Brazilian legend Zico is also considering a bid, while Prince Ali bin Hussein of Jordan, who lost to Blatter in the last elections, has announced his intention to run again. Prince Ali is also checking if FIFA rules could allow him to serve as interim president during the months leading up to the election. Other names have already been thrown in the ring. One of them has the support of the president of Venezuela.
The International Federation of Association Football should be directed by the players. The president of FIFA should be Diego Armando Maradona or someone like him.
But whoever is eventually elected will have their work cut out for them to transform the culture of corruption, which has thrived for decades behind the scenes of the beautiful game.
Joining in studio also by Yoav Borovich, I-24 News sports editor and whatnot. I mean, before I delve into how Americans brought down European football, which, come on, it is our... This is huge. What do we know about this dramatic decision of Sepp Blatter to first run for election and then several days later resign? What is the information he's running away from?
First of all, he ran for the election because it all broke 2 days before the election, so he just didn't want to do this U-turn in the last second. So he ran, he won, but he immediately understood what's happening, and he's probably under an investigation now by U.S. authorities, so he's out the door. And a lot of his cronies, a lot of his partners, the top officials in FIFA are also out the door. And we are talking, Yael, about an international investigation. And when I say international, I mean the whole world. People are under arrest in Brazil, Peru, South Africa, U.S., Europe, and we are not. And we are not talking just these are very, very important people that are under arrest. We're talking the people who actually ran the game for decades. In the Americas, Central America, South America, North America, Europe, Africa, really. So obviously, even now, people say it's the tip of the iceberg.
We're looking at the situation that this investigation can't put a man like Sepp Blatter. I mean, I'm just wondering out loud with the bits of information. It can put him eventually in jail.
It could, but it also could not. It's not even the main issue. The main issue is that FIFA, as we know it, broke down. There's going to be probably a new FIFA. Even then, there are a lot of issues because FIFA, we're talking about 209 people. It's like a small guild. They're running the football. Those people are the only people who can vote, who can decide, who can reform the game, who could not reform the game. That's one of the problems. The game has so many ailments. We're talking about a game that's not only corrupt. We're talking about all the leagues that are not competitive. Most of the leagues lose money. Most of the owners just come, they do their PR, they leave. Very small amount of teams have money. Most of the teams don't have money. No competitive nature whatsoever. No rules changing, no reforms. Football is suffering on so many fronts. It's not just the bribery. The bribery, of course, is maybe the main thing, among the people who are running the game. And we can understand how they reach the decisions, to bring World Cup to South Africa was a very nice thing, the first African World Cup. But now a lot of money changed, and we have in Russia with human rights violations. We have Qatar with dramatic human rights violations and gay rights, and so many things. This sport just became a mockery.
A mockery. And I want to say that, when Sepp Blatter resigned and Jonathan Sacerdoni, don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to, give me your football take on this. But there was this jubilation in Europe. Jubilation of people. The internet broke with everybody I know from not just the UK of Waha as reactions.
Of course, because this isn't just an issue about football, and even for people who aren't that interested in football, when you look at a body which has so few people in it, but is regulating something so popular in so many countries that touches the lives of so many millions of people and handles so much money, what we're seeing, billions. This is really a case of a huge corruption, the same as it would be in a multinational corporation or the same as it would be in a government, because FIFA essentially fulfills parts of its duty is part company, part multinational, part government, part regulator, and it turns out that at every step of the way, it seems to regular people reading about this in the newspapers that it's failed. It's been taking bribes, it's been making decisions based on absolutely the wrong input, and this is something that ordinary football fans want to see sorted out.
And speaking of sorting it out, Yoav, that's my question to you. So what are the next steps now? First of all, why is Sepp Blatter not stepping down this second? Why is he staying for an extra several months, so to speak, or almost a year?
He claims that it's the due process in FIFA. He'll be out in 4 months. I think it might take a lot, might be sooner than that. But the future of FIFA, that's the main question. Who will be running the organization, and more importantly, how this organization will be run? Because if it's going to be the same system, different people, we didn't make a lot of a change. The systems, the processes have to change there dramatically. People who might run, Prince Ali from Jordan, Michel Platini, Zico, Luis Figo, big people in world football. There might be even new people who will run. But the football, Prince Ali said something, the son of the legendary King Hussein. He said, I want to run for president, but my goal is that in a few years, nobody will know the name of the president. He says, I want football to be much more democratic. I want it to have a lot of centers of power. And I don't want anyone to know who I am. Right. I'm not important. I just want to reform this whole thing. And we saw Europe standing behind him, although Sepp Blatter obviously is European. But still, the whole world, stood behind Blatter. But he's history, but it's not enough. It's just
not enough. It's the whole chain from the bottom down. But listen, it's a sliver of hope. Bad people eventually go down. Who knows? Maybe that's something to think about. Thank you both for being with me this morning. When we get back, more than 230 schools in South Korea have temporarily shut down, fearing the spread of Middle East respiratory syndrome. MERS, that's what they call this disease. We'll take a closer look. First, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. It is still Thursday, June
4th. Got this thing down. Got it down.
4th, yeah. 2015. Tomorrow is the anniversary of what war? June 5th.
I don't know. What?
Six-Day War.
Oh, Six-Day War, okay.
And today is the anniversary of what? Tiananmen Square.
Nice. Okay. June 5th is also when my son was born. That's what I led to. That's actually what I led to. Ami Kaufman, the man, the bow tie, the very manly blue shirt.
Thank you very much.
Is here with us with all the news you missed while scanning the headlines. What did we miss?
Okay, well, we're going to start with ISIS.
Wait, stop. Hold on. And Ruthie C9, I-24 News, senior news editor.
Hello.
I'm a bit slow this morning. People need to know who you are.
This morning? No, just kidding.
Take it away. Yes.
Okay, again, we're going to start with ISIS. For me, the timing of this headline is kind of weird. This is a headline that we have from The Guardian. It's basically a Reuters piece. A man named Antony Blinken, he's the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, said in a meeting yesterday where 20 countries are meeting in Paris. These are the countries that are participating in the coalition.
Anti-ISIS coalition.
The anti-ISIS coalition said that so far 10,000 ISIS fighters have been killed. Which is, okay, I guess that's, well, you know what? There's no details about this. I don't know if that's a high number, it's a low number.
No,
there's no percentage of the force. When,
what does that mean?
What does it mean? When and where? And you know what? For me, it kind of sounds a little fishy because we've been hearing all the time about these advances of ISIS.
Headline you brought. Exactly, they came because at the end of the day, they're looking. It feels like the anti-ISIS coalition is fishing for things to show that they're doing something good. Meanwhile, on the ground, ISIS in charge of took over the Anbar province. Palmyra in Syria. They're clearly winning. Can we sit here as journalists and say that? They're winning on the ground.
It sounds kind of weak, like they're really scraping the barrel. Oh, we got, you know.
Yeah, 10,000.
Well, yeah, but the question is 10,000 out of what?
That's
I
what
mean, if it's 10,000 out of, 500,000, then...
It's not that great, is it?
No. And even, even if I think the first numbers of ISIS back in the day, by the way, ISIS is about to celebrate an anniversary since they sprung into global recognition.
Oh, really?
It's been a year.
It's June 5th as well? That's
well,
also
not June 5th, I know. That would be my son and ISIS. No. But I think it has been a year.
Yeah.
But I think back in the day, they were rumored to be somewhere between 300 to 500,000.
Really?
So even if that's I think they're much more nowadays.
That's a high number, yeah.
Yeah, but even if that's the case, then 10,000 is what?
Right.
And not to mention the amount of citizens and civilians that they've been killing.
So interesting kind of timing. That's it. Okay, doing our little media comparison thing today, and we're doing it again in Yemen and Saudi Arabia, who is attacking Yemen, leading the coalition there. We're going to start with Al Arabiya News, which is of course, backed by the Saudi regime, and it reports on attacks on the Yemen capital, Sana'a. And on a base that is being held by the Houthi rebels, who are, of course, backed by Iran. So, again, we're speaking about propaganda. I want to compare it, though, to the Fars agency from the news agency from Iran, which is, of course, reporting on a totally different thing. And I wonder sometimes people, who are trying to understand what's going on in this war, where they get the information on who is winning and who is winning what. Because listen to what the Fars agency says. First of all, they said that they have attacked positions in a place called Drahan. They have seized tens of armored vehicles and tanks and 400 missiles, and have killed 30 Saudi military men, which was not reported at all in the Al Arabiya piece whatsoever. It did mention a bit later on in Fars that there were Saudi-led attacks on Sana'a, but very briefly, and of course they always say that things like this. Most of the victims of the deadly Al-Sad campaign are civilians, including a large number of women and children. So it's very clear cut that this is a real Iran-Saudi Arabia war.
It is. I think on the chessboard that is the Middle East, and what is so fascinating about Yemen, it has become the playground for Iran and Saudi. That's where they're hashing it out. And I don't think anything can be reached actually on June 30th, and maybe I'm wrong about that, if this is not resolved. I think that's where it's being played out. Yeah, that's where it's being played out right now.
I don't think it's going to happen. And just one little tidbit, another one from Fars, because this is kind of about Israel. The headline is really interesting. Sources reveal Israel's attempts to steal Yemen's ancient antiques.
Oh, come on.
I have not seen this anywhere reported anywhere else. Look at the picture, by the way, that they choose. It's a cracked Israeli flag there with some. It looks like a girl in Gaza rubble or something.
Israel's attempt to steal Yemen's ancient antiques.
Let me read you it says security reasons. Yemeni intelligence forces have gained information revealing that Israel is using the Arab country's Jews to identify, steal, and smuggle ancient antiques to Israel.
So let's just put these Jews in those Arab countries in danger.
You know what that's about, though? This is all about this resurgence of the Jews in Arab countries who are demanding reparations and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Good morning, Middle East. Okay.
We're leaving the Middle East, going to Silicon Valley. Tim Cook had some really harsh words for Google and Facebook and Twitter. This is from Business Insider.
The other proxy. The other wars.
The other wars. It's a very important war because Apple is probably the biggest country. The biggest company, almost like a country. It has a budget. It has a budget that is larger than most countries, for example. And he is showing that he is really against the invasion into online privacy. And this is the money quote that I want to read for you.
Please.
Our privacy is being attacked on multiple fronts. I'm speaking to you from Silicon Valley, where some of the most prominent and successful companies have built their businesses by lulling their customers into complacency about their personal information. They're gobbling up everything they can learn about you and trying to monetize it. We think that's wrong, and it's not the kind of company that Apple wants to be. Those are really harsh words.
No, that's, I mean, listen, I'm not saying this just because we are journalists, but not that we did not know that. And I think most citizens know that our information is there for grabs. It's stolen or not. To hear this from Tim Cook, but I'm just wondering when it comes to Apple, are they devoid of any,
Well, they apparently do a little collection of data. Nothing compared to Facebook and Google, but Apple now has to decide if it's going to try to keep up.
Cloud.
If it's going to try to keep up, but it's not as big as what Google and Facebook are doing. Okay. They have to decide if they want to try to keep up with Google and Facebook.
Right.
And Tim Cook, I think, is showing that he's going to steer clear and go in a different direction, which many people might like. This might be good for Apple's sales.
Let's hope. Okay.
This is a good one.
Yes.
BBC journalist might be fired because she actually killed the Queen on Twitter.
I saw
okay. Now the BBC does every year. It does this what they call a royal death rehearsal. They do a royal death rehearsal of just in case the Queen dies or someone else from the royal family dies. She did not. She was in the area. She did not know that it was a rehearsal, and she started tweeting. And I think I have. I'll break it down for you. Let's see the first tweet, if we can bring that up. Please. It says, "Queen Elizabeth is being treated at King Edward VII Hospital in London. Statement due shortly." This did not happen, of course. The next tweet. Queen Elizabeth has died.
God. Lord.
This one got retweeted all over the place. Let's see the next one.
Yes.
False alarm to Queen's death. She's being treated at King Edward VII Hospital. Statement due shortly. Now. It's semi-correct. The Queen exactly was at the hospital for a routine checkup. She did not know that, though. Yeah. Let's see the next one.
There's another one. Yes. Here we go.
False alarm. I have deleted the previous tweets. And
Kawaja, I think you just lost your day job.
She's in big trouble.
No, but this is the kind of thing that, first of all, off with her head. Why? Oh my God! To the tower. Yes. Oh my word. Yeah. That's yeah. There it is. Yeah, we're back to school for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, one last one. Real quick.
Dr. Ruth is in real trouble because she said that women cannot say no to sex once they are naked in bed with an aroused partner. She even gave Talmudic backing to this.
What do you mean you cannot say no?
She said that in the Talmud it says when that part of the male...
Not allowed to say no?
No, it's Talmudic.
Talmudic, it says that when that part of the male anatomy is aroused and there's an erection, the brain flies out of that, and we have to take that very seriously.
And then once she's agreed to go to bed, she can't yell rape or anything.
Yeah. Okay.
So now she's being accused that she supports rape. She went out on Twitter saying, no, I don't, of course, support rape.
I'm glad she doesn't, but after a statement like that, with all due respect, I don't even know where to take that one. Dr. Ruth, not anymore. Okay, Ami, locked in studio as we move along.
To another Ruth.
The Ruth, and there is a reason that Ruthie Sinai is here with us in studio. After all, it is another, death, destruction, and whatnot. But hold on, because I've just lost my prompter. So, MERS, the World Health Organization warned that the MERS outbreak in South Korea is likely to grow. Yeah. Isn't that the case? Yeah. Okay, that the MERS outbreak in South Korea is likely to grow as 1,364 people remain under quarantine and confirmed cases grew to 30 people. So far, 2 people have died after contracting the respiratory virus in South Korea in the largest MERS outbreak outside Saudi Arabia in 2 years. We're joined in studio by I-24 News Senior Editor Ruthie Sinai. Ruthie, good morning to you. Let's take a look at the following report and break it down.
5 more cases of MERS, or Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, the virus that can include coughing, fever, and eventually respiratory failure, were confirmed in South Korea Wednesday, bringing to 30 the number infected since the outbreak began in the country 2 weeks ago. 2 people have died, fueling fear in the country with the most cases outside the Middle East, where the disease first appeared.
We have seen that she died because of bacterial pneumonia, which caused septicemia. We are conducting tests now.
Fear of the disease shut more than 200 schools on Wednesday, most of them in a province around Seoul, where the first death occurred Monday. The crisis prompts South Korean President Park Geun-hye to convene an emergency meeting.
MERS cases have increased in 2 weeks. After the first case was confirmed, there are a lot of people worried about the situation since 2 patients died. Everything must be done to stop any further spread.
While there has been no sustained human-to-human transmission, the nightmare scenario is that the virus, first identified in humans in 2012, can change and spread rapidly like SARS or severe acute respiratory syndrome did in 2002 to 2003, and which killed about 800 people around the world. The World Health Organization puts the total number of worldwide MERS cases at 1,161, with at least 436 related deaths, the vast majority in the Middle East. To date, no vaccine or cure has been found.
Joining me in studio is I-24 News Senior Editor Ruthie Sinai. Good morning. And on the phone with us, Professor Eitan Friedman, who is the head of the Oncogenetics Unit in Sheba Tel HaShomer Hospital in Israel. Dr. Friedman, let's start with you. Sorry, Professor Eitan Friedman, let's start with you first. When it comes to MERS and this bit of information, South Korea, how concerned should the world be? Are we looking at another spread?
I don't think so. I think caution should be exercised. I think people should be quarantined. But the vast majority of the data indicate that community-associated breaks are really, really rare. This is probably the first time. Most of the infections that have been
confirmed have been within hospitals, and healthcare providers are at the highest risk for contracting this specific virus. In the community, it's extremely rare unless the virus has undergone a mutation which enables it to freely and more successfully to be transmitted within the community from person to person. It's not the World Health Organization is probably overstating the risk and to protect themselves in case something bad does happen. I don't think we should take it lightly, because there is no vaccine and no cure, and unlike the SARS, which was mentioned earlier, which has a death rate of about 10%, this specific virus has a death rate which is around 40%. So 40% of individuals infected or who have manifested the disease have died worldwide. And this is a staggering statistic.
It's a staggering, frightening thing. Ruthie, what do we know about MERS? Middle Eastern respiratory, why is it called that?
Because all the cases known so far have been located in or around Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, and it was identified only in 2012. And there's a lot that's not known, lot that's not known about it, especially about the transmission mechanism. SARS, one knows how it's transmitted from among people. MERS so far was thought to not be very contagious or not very easily contracted in people-to-people contact. I think what the WHO is trying to do, other than maybe cover their behind, is also something very important, and that is the importance of initial reaction. In other words, in Korea, what happened was there was a 68-year-old gentleman who came back from visiting Saudi Arabia and a few other countries in the region, and he, apparently started feeling ill, and then he started going from clinic to clinic, looking for remedies. So he came into contact with, healthcare providers and with patients.
Came into contact with patients.
And that's how, and that's what Professor Friedman was saying. It's essentially inside the healthcare system. But as happened with Ebola, for instance, if you remember in the States, this man who came back was not treated, or didn't know he was sick, was not treated, was let go, and then he started infecting circles around him. And that's obviously
all in all, a terrifying thing. Symptoms of this is basically the symptoms of somewhat of a
very bad cold.
Very bad cold. Okay. Professor Friedman, I want to thank you very much for being with us this morning. Sadly, all the time we have Ruthie Sinai. Let's hope none of us get this. Middle East Army is looking at me really terrified. Thanks. That's it for this block, but do stay with us when we get back. A closer look coming up next. Jewish and Arab youth explore their respective identities and commonalities. It's a bit of hope coming out of this region with diseases and wars. So do stay with us. First, the news. Welcome back. It is still Thursday, June 4th, 2015. This is still the morning edition. Last I checked, I'm still Yael Levi. Thank you for staying with us. You should have. I'm joined by two very intelligent women in studio. One of them being Shachar Peled, I-24 News culture and social correspondent. And of course, Merav Savir, I-24 News correspondent, who I just like.
I'll take it.
You see, there we go. But we're going to start with Shachar. Shachar, you have a story for us that is, I don't want to say depressing, but I'm going to let you lead into
Exactly. I'll try and combine the good news with the bad one.
News.
Well, we've fallen in love with stories about young Arabs and Israelis joining hands,
and doing things,
working together, cooperating, whether it's on artistic or cultural or even political.
And I'll stop for a second and I'll say which were usually pitched, which come as, initiatives to journalists. We love to pick those up.
It's true because, I have to say it's true because they are true. They are true stories. We do see these lovely small groups trying to live together.
Few and far between.
But few and far between. And the reality is almost too grim to bear. Let's start with the story we've prepared.
Let's take a look at that report.
This could have been a harmonious story about bridging gaps, as demonstrated by this musical group composed of Israeli, Arab and Jewish youngsters, which is currently touring New York.
In the past, we always heard that, yes, Arabs and Jews can live together. Now we're proving it. And it's big change for Arabs and for Jewish.
But unfortunately, Mahdi and his Jewish friends are not representative of Israeli society. A new survey by Smith Consulting of 400 Israeli teenagers aged 12 to 18 revealed some of the political views of this generation of youth. A majority of the Jewish teenage population sees itself as right-wing, with only 9% polled describing themselves as leftists. When asked whether the state should emphasize its Jewish values or its democratic character, Jewish students favored the Jewish state over a democratic one by nearly 2 to 1. By contrast, a vast majority of Arab students, 96%, favored a democratic state. But perhaps the most troubling finding pointed to a growing alienation felt by both sides. 45% of Israeli Jewish youngsters said they preferred not to study in the same classroom as Arab pupils, whereas 39% of the Arab students said they likewise wouldn't want Jews in their schools. The gap appears to be increasing as fewer Jewish and Arab youths are exposed to their counterparts. Efforts to promote coexistence are also being derailed by extremists, as evidenced by last year's arson attack targeting first-grade classrooms at a joint Jewish-Arab school in Jerusalem. Many view the divide with indifference, as nationalistic tensions within Israeli society creep into nearly all aspects of life. A new Haifa University study, for example, shows Arabs constitute less than 8% of all judges, despite comprising 20% of Israel's population. For its part, the finance ministry has warned of possible state bankruptcy if a repressed minority ever grows to a quarter of the population. Unless the status quo is shattered, and fast, much of the next generation of Arabs and Jews will continue to grow apart.
Shahar Peled, I'm going to put you on the spot and say, sadly, this is not, it's in line with the depressing morning that we've had. But
I apologize for that.
No, but it's a terribly, terribly important story, because here's my take on this, and I want you to break it down for us. It's that generation. It's this generation that is, it will have the onus upon it to try and carry out maybe some form of reconciliation. And it's this type of survey that makes us think that that will not happen if these are the feelings.
This is why it's so important, because this is our future.
Right.
I do want to start with the good news. We have seen Mahdi and his group. It's an orchestra of Israelis and Arabs playing together classical music and putting politics aside. We've seen collaborations over films, books written together by Palestinians and Israelis, poems, songs. We've mentioned in the past the Yalla group, a group of today almost 800,000 people joining together in this peace movement, young leaders from the Middle East and North Africa trying to foster dialogue and change. There is some kind of movements, at least willing to talk together, but inside the country,
exactly.
And if we follow this, the numbers from this poll, there's trends of intolerance towards each other, starting with 35% of Jewish Israeli teens who had said they never even interacted with an Arab, and 27% of Arab Israelis saying that they have never spoken with a Jewish youth. If a third of the population have never even met. or talked or seen someone from the other side, how can we even start a dialogue? This survey also seeped into the social media world. 11% of the Jewish youth in this survey stated that they had been physically or verbally injured or excommunicated for speaking out politics online, and thus 84% said they even tried not to state their opinion online. Of course, the majority of those who said they were verbally assaulted were left-wing. And we've seen this on the adult sphere in the past year, in the past 2 years.
The past elections.
With this this shaming phenomena.
The shaming, and I think one of the casualties. The casualties, and I'm glad Merav is here too. And I will bring this back actually to a year ago this summer, okay? The summer a year ago. During the war, there is a part of it, in Israel, people get together throughout the war. But if you had a certain opinion that did not jive with it was frightening to voice.
It was detonating because the sense of racism and discrimination was so strong among a core group of the Israeli society who was so vocal and was so speaking so loudly over both social media and mainstream media and the traditional television, radio, everywhere it had become the mainstream, unfortunately, and the opposing voices were just rejected, or the answer was death to anyone who doesn't think like that way. So if we move on, also half of the respondents stated they don't think teachers should express their personal political opinions in class. This might be a whole other subject, but we've also seen, as we see that the youth grow more and more right-wing, 52% believe they are right-wing and even radical right-wing. We've seen in the past when teachers who are more liberal or left-wing,
we've seen it in academia,
also in schools, there's been even teachers fired because they stated their opinions, and this raised an outrage from students, from pupils, saying that a teacher shouldn't state its opinion. The bottom line here is education. I'll quickly quote Professor Kobi Metzer, head of the Open University of Israel. He says the findings are at a time when we are witnessing an increase in instances of intolerance, racism, and discrimination. Education must play a key role in shaping Israeli society as a democratic, open society. And unfortunately, we are growing apart from that. The education system it's always seeping in from the adult arena, we could call it.
It's seeping in from administrations, whatnot, and
our own administration banning, breaking the silence, groups like Breaking the Silence. This whole right-wing movement towards anything politically, cultural, anything that has to do with opposing opinions.
No, and it's the fabric of democracy, which I hate to quote even the President of the United States in an interview to Israeli television several days ago, saying there are dangers here that go way beyond security, that go way beyond missiles. There are dangers to free thought. There are dangers to free opinion, and its numbers are such that are so frightening.
And the day before election, when the Prime Minister mentions this famous Arabs are going to vote, this is the most prominent sign that is reflected to the younger generations.
That is resonating, and it works.
Resonating, exactly, and works when they hear this, and it creates some kind of sense of hatred. There's nothing else that you can say, which drives into action, whether it's voting or whether it's violence, is a very, very big problem we have here in the Israeli society.
No, I'm with you on that, Jaffa Port. Thank you for being with us, but you're locked here because maybe Mirav Savir will give us some hope.
Brighten your day. Please,
please
do try.
I've just put you on the spot right now.
With great power comes
great
responsibility.
Okay, yeah, exactly. In the recent decade, the digital world has brought us closer together across the globe, whether here in Tel Aviv, in Manila, or even Armenia. Over the years, more and more organizations have been popping up with just the goal of bringing people together. So, Mirav Savir, I want to take it away. Tell me what you have brought us today.
Well, I went to one organization at one of its cities here in Tel Aviv, and they kind of do it on a fun scene. So it's the last Thursday of every month, and it's at a bar. So let's have a look.
Let's have a look at the story and take it from there.
On the last Thursday night of every month, a bar in Tel Aviv goes bold. Bold is a global initiative. 15 cities, one topic every month. May's topic, democracy.
We're going to have a pretty nice group of men. We have Boaz, Don, and Michael Oren. They're all basically coming at democracy from different angles. One is really speaking about minority rights.
Every couple of years, the government would announce the end of the Ethiopian immigration.
The other one is really speaking about how we as a people need to kind of stand up and be part of what the government is doing.
For the past 30 years, governments in Israel have been undermining us as citizens. We've just become transparent.
And then Michael Oren, who will be speaking, about his experience as the former ambassador.
We have a multi-party system, which is flagrantly democratic. It's democracy on steroids.
Bold is international and focuses on development. Participating cities range from Kabul, Afghanistan to London, England. The organization works to equip international developers and by doing so fight poverty. And each city approaches its Bold monthly topic differently. Bold New Delhi tells us it focuses more on building the community and sporadically hosts events, while Yerevan focuses on the meetings and in bringing speakers from different angles.
three speakers who speak about the topic from their perspectives. First of all, this is networking, and networking within specific field of interest. This is not just about talking each other. This is talking and meeting people that are experts and involved in specific topics.
Bold is still new in both Yerevan and Tel Aviv, just a couple months old. And Maya says the Tel Aviv team learned to take a slightly different approach in their events.
What we found here in Tel Aviv is that it's a very small group of people, and they don't really need another group to meet socially. And so what we decided to do was make it more Tel Avivian, make it more fun for anybody to come to. One of the things we felt really passionately about, myself and my team, is that we wanted people to engage more in issues, global and local issues, that they don't usually engage in.
Current freshman member of Israeli parliament Michael Oren says back in his day, they missed out on events like this.
I wish this was around when I was your age, back in the last century, because we didn't have any of this, and it was a much more insular society and much harder to break into. I think Israel's much more open now. And if you wanted to get into politics, if you wanted to get into public affairs today, doors are wide open.
For some, it gives an alternative to the usual Thursday night events.
It's an opportunity on a Thursday night when you might just go out, drink and hang out with your friends to hear something that's going to expand your mind.
Other topics over the last few months included happiness, urbanization, and women's empowerment. And in June, these 15 cities will be talking about something that's been dominating recent headlines: refugees.
First of all, Marav, that's a great report, but everybody wants to be Ted in many ways, don't they? Is this the new Ted?
It may be. It's still growing. I mean, it's still very young. Yerevan and Tel Aviv are only about 7 months old. Personally, I think the uniqueness is the one topic every month, all cities. And they all approach it in a different way. And obviously this month, democracy, a bigger topic, but you're also looking at topics like happiness. You have 3 speakers, or however you look to approach it, who come talk about happiness, and all from a different angle, which is not something you do
usually. Did you see the bit about happiness?
I was not there for the happiness one. I've attended 2 of them. One of them is this democracy, and the other one I attended was women's empowerment, which was also very interesting because it wasn't only women talking about it, and bringing men in to talk about women's empowerment. The one thing
women will only be empowered if men realize that we need to be. I'm sorry, it's come on, yes. Okay.
Well, it's part of the issue.
It's part of the issue.
We need men vocalizing about it.
Yeah.
It depends which way you look at it. But one of the things that I thought that was missing, and I spoke to both Yerevan and Tel Aviv about it, is that yes, these 15 cities are doing it, but they don't have as much connection with one another as you think that they would, because each approaches it differently. When I spoke to New Delhi, they told me we don't really do these events too often. We're focusing more on the community itself. We're out there helping them rather than just talking about this stuff. So that's what's interesting about how it's different in every way.
Right.
Other chapters that I wish I'd been able to speak to, but I did not get responses from Kabul, one of them, London, Johannesburg, Toronto. They're all over the world.
And the one about democracy, in a very little time, but the one about democracy in Israel, what struck you about that? Because apropos what we just spoke about with Shachar and the fabric of democracy, whatnot, the speakers in Israel on the democracy issue, what was the main
And that's the way
there?
that they split it, which is really interesting. They split it, had one guy coming in talking about refugees, migrants and people who have come here and their minority rights. And that not only specifically, and it has a lot to do with what's going on now with the Ethiopians in Israel, spoke about the Arabs and about the Ethiopians, about how minorities need to be approached in democracy. Another one talked a lot about 2011, the summer with pitching tents on Rothschild, and how
Occupy Rothschild,
and how we as people need to stand up to the government in order to make our point heard. And then Michael Oren talking about being a rookie in the Israeli parliament was definitely interesting. A guy who grew up in the United States, has seen both sides, and he told a lot of very interesting stories about American politicians coming in and saying, wait, you don't talk about Iran on a daily basis, you're talking about water, and when they're going to shut off your water because you haven't paid. So it's it gave a different perspective. A lot of them talk about what's going on the Knesset floor.
No, but fascinating. And girls, thank you both for being with me. When we get back, something entirely different. Netflix latest hit, 8 Senses, focuses on 8 strangers from around the world who suddenly find that their minds are united. First, the news. the end of the show as we know it. Yes, it's my new way.
Really?
Yeah, of leading
Every
up to.
show? Okay.
Yeah, I'm heavily medicated. Don't listen to anything I say. It is June 4th, 2015. Ami Kaufman, the man, the bow tie, the color blue, is here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Avro, you are here too.
I am here.
Avro Tzvi Rosen?
Rosentzvi, wow.
I don't know, and that was Hebrew. My God. There you go. Wow. Wow. Anyway, here as well in the studio, I will shut up. The spiral viral that is the web review is right here.
Let us begin. Okay.
Please.
If there's one thing that I'm kind of tired with already, it is Caitlyn Jenner.
I'm too.
I'm already tired of it. It's only been 48 hours and I'm kind of tired with it. But
enough.
Unfortunately, I am bringing you some stuff about Caitlyn Jenner because these are two shows that I just adore. I'm a huge fan of. Now, the website Uprocks found an old clip from Family Guy from 2009, which apparently predicted that Bruce Jenner was female, and I think we have to see this.
We must. Brilliant. Let's have a look.
Ugh, look, there's Brody Jenner. God, what a douchebag. I can't believe that came out of Bruce Jenner's vagina.
Bruce Jenner is a man.
No, Brian. That's what the press would have you believe, but he's not. Bruce Jenner is a woman. An elegant, beautiful Dutch woman.
Stewie knew back then.
Stewie knew
that Bruce Jenner.
Huge.
Isn't that amazing?
How did we not open the show with this?
You know, I can't argue with that. You're right. Hopefully, if we have time, maybe watch it.
Everybody.
It was also on Married with Children. It was also
very true.
Yeah.
There was a prediction on Married with Children that Bruce Jenner was female back then.
They have the little neighbor, neighbor woman,
course,
and then someone Marcy. Wow, yeah. Where did you get that from? And somebody says, "What is Bruce Jenner doing here?" About her.
About her.
Yeah.
Nice
one.
So
everybody it was out there. Was those little nitpicks. Okay, more.
And of course, I'm a huge fan of Jon Stewart, who tackled the issue yesterday, coming out and saying how Americans really treat women. We can see it through this the Caitlyn Jenner issue. Let's see what he had to say. A quick bit.
Quite important.
Caitlyn, when you were a man, we could talk about your athleticism, your business acumen, but now you're a woman, and your looks are really the only thing we care about. Which brings us to phase 2 of your transition. Comparative ability.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He had
some really
comparing her to other women. Who does she look like?
Who does she look like? Now there was some. I saw that.
I have a few of his observations. He said comparing him to other women who, if he looks better, if she looks better or not. He said, "Look, we want to give a woman a compliment here. We just want to make sure another woman gets taken down a peg or two. It's how we maintain the balance." And then he gave another stab at the age because everybody's saying that, of course, immediately says how great she looks, for 65. Wow, remind her she has an expiration date now. You came out at 65, you got another 2 years since you become invisible to society. Better make the most of it.
Yeah,
and then he says, Caitlyn Jenner, congratulations. Welcome to being a woman in America.
In America.
That's how it is.
Around the world. I'm sorry, around the world. And I love the fact that, Caitlyn Jenner is out there, that this has happened, whatnot. But as a woman, I have to say, why would you want to be one of us?
Good question.
Yes.
Good question. I don't have an answer for that one.
You don't have an answer for that. Moving along.
Okay, moving along. In the earlier hour, we talked about Tim Cook and how he took a jab at Facebook and Google and about how they're using ads and stuff. Well, here we have it. Instagram is about to open its photo feed to ads. So you're gonna, your whole photo feed is gonna be full of ads now of not just anybody can post an ad. If your local tattoo parlor, global food makers, these are people who are gonna now try to attract the attention of 300 million users.
I'm assuming there are no details, but if you're a blocked user, if you confirm friends, then they're going to try and reach you any which way.
That's a good question. I don't know how it's going to work.
Now, I'm trying to think, how do we stop this?
But you're not going to be able to stop it.
You're not going to be able to stop it. You're not going to be able to stop it. Everything
and of course, Instagram was bought by Facebook for $1 billion a couple years ago. So this is what exactly what Tim Cook was talking about.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, you know how I love dogs on Instagram. This guy is named Bodhi. And he is the brainchild of a husband and wife team. They're a graphic designer, David Fung, and fashion expert Yenna Kim. The New York Times picked up this story. He is actually known, his real name is Menswear Dog. They started a Tumblr and they dressed him with some pretty crazy photos of him being dressed. And now it became so viral and popular that they put out a book. It's called Menswear Dog Presents the New Classics, and I think we have some pictures of Menswear Dog.
That has to be animal abuse of some kind.
I'm looking at this, I'm thinking,
Here's the
do
book.
we need to save this dog?
This is the book, and I think.
Oh, come on!
Look, Bodhi.
Look at that.
He is very handsome.
He's a handsome dog.
He's a handsome dog.
Isn't he a handsome dog?
This will always have Paris somewhere. Wait, hold on.
Look at this.
Oh, that's the Social Network. It's, I think, the dog doing all kinds of characters from films. That's great. Wait, you've got male Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
No.
How did they get him to stand up like
nice
that?
Doesn't he look great?
How did they make him?
Dog.
Now, there are 5 rules. If you want to live by Menswear Dog, his dogma, as they say.
His dogma.
There are 5 rules that you can, that you can follow. Number 1, invest now, save later. 2, classics are timeless for a reason. This is good advice. Listen to this. Fit trumps price every time.
Come on.
And if it doesn't make you feel good, don't wear it. And when in doubt, keep it simple, Yael.
Sorry, it's the J. Crew. Yeah.
I had an ex-girlfriend who made me feel like that a little bit. She didn't take pictures of me and put it on the web, but that's what it felt like, basically.
You drive me crazy, but then you say stuff like that, and we love you again. Yes.
Here's another one from one of my favorite sites, Board Panda. This is about a guy who got a little lonely and apparently had a lot of time on his hands because he is a newcomer to Melbourne. He felt lonely. He's an artist, and he said, I want to use my crochet skills to impress people. So what he did is he made crochet hats out of food. Let's take a few see some of the pictures that he has of different. This one, I guess, a hamburger. Here's a pizza. We could just run through them.
That is so sad.
That's an avocado, right? Not an eggplant.
He did this? He made this?
Yeah, that's ketchup and mustard.
Stop. This guy crocheted.
He did all of them. He did their drumstick.
Wow. Wow.
Can I say, I think he's really good.
No, I think he's really good, but when the camera goes back to me...
How long does it take?
Hold on. Look at that. Oh, my God.
Oh, there's the eggplant.
Look at that. Look at that. Yes. I need the camera back on me.
Dude, that's
on.
mean. That's mean.
Come on.
Whoever used the term, I want to use crochet to make people appreciate me.
Is that a crocheted eggplant on your head? Or are you just having
The mustache makes it work. The
mustache,
the sad mustache.
Wow.
Kind of brings it all together.
Get divorced and date this guy and save him from himself. Yes.
You know how sometimes when you're really tired in the morning, or sometimes, and there you go. Or sometimes you just need an upper, or actually you want a downer, you want to go to bed. Okay, so there's this company called Think, T-H-Y-N-C, that has a new product out. For $300, you can get this thing, as you see the picture. It looks like a little plastic triangle that's on your head.
Yeah.
And it'll give you some zaps to your head. And by the way, it is controlled by your phone. There's an app that comes with it. All you do is, you open up your phone, you press, I want more energy, and I want more relaxation. For about an hour, it'll give you a few zaps to your head. And there are reviewers here that The Independent brought, and they say, this thing works amazing.
Wait.
Coming in with a white patch.
Wait, I'm just like, zaps you with what? With electric shocks?
A little electric shocks to the nervous system, yeah. And it makes you, wakes you up.
Am I the only one who finds this terrifying?
Are we like Frankenstein?
I find this terrifying, and it works with your phone?
It works with your phone. There's an app for that.
Okay, there's an app for that will zap you in the head.
It will zap you in the head, and you'll feel awake suddenly.
Okay, I don't even know how to do that. Yeah, wow.
You seem excited. You might want to relax. Next time I'll buy you the
Please,
little...
but no, I need to get... Where does one find this thing?
You can buy it pretty soon, I think, for $300.
For $300
at Amazon, I guess. You could just Google it.
Wow. No, I don't know. Maybe I'm too tired to... Maybe I need one of these.
It zaps your brain.
It zaps your brain. It electrifies... Yeah, nice.
What can go wrong?
Nothing.
What can go wrong?
It gives an electric shock. You buy it.
You don't want to forget your phone somewhere, like with your kids suddenly pressing that.
Wow. Yes. Okay.
And lastly, very quickly, Japan has actually made Godzilla an official citizen. It has received a document.
Only
as we can
now?
See,
oh my God!
As we can see. And Michael,
like 50 years.
This is a picture from Twitter of the feed.
Japan has actually made Godzilla.
Now I just want to ask a question to the Japanese. If I remember correctly, and I watched a few Godzilla. Godzilla actually ruined Tokyo over and over again with his. He stomped on Tokyo, and he
ruined Tokyo in the first movie. Then in subsequent films,
in sequels,
he's the hero. He protects Tokyo from other monsters.
That just showed that I do not know my Godzilla very well.
It went like
because for a second I thought it's like giving the Joker the key to Gotham City or something. Why would you do that?
Let's make Hitler an honorary citizen. I've never said that. Okay, but it's the time to move to culture. Avri.
Hi. I'm going to Japan in September. I'll be sure to congratulate Godzilla
I think
on his newfound citizenship.
I want to see pictures of you with Godzilla.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. But hit us with anything.
Okay, well, we're starting with a different dinosaur. He's not a dinosaur, but don't kill me, Godzilla fans. Where's my camera?
Yes.
Pixar are just about to release a new film, and they already have a new trailer for a film coming out Thanksgiving. It's called The Good Dinosaur. Let's watch a trailer, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the tribulations this film went through.
Trailer. Wow.
That's nice. That's nice.
So
no, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I really want to. Yeah,
this is a film that talks about basically the asteroid that we think caused the extinction event of the dinosaur, missed the Earth. The dinosaurs evolved into a intelligent community,
right?
And there's this. The story deals with one dinosaur, Arlo, who gets separated from his herd and meets a human who is sort of like his pet because we're not so evolved at this point.
So it asserts that there was no dinosaur extinction.
No, and then human evolved with them. This film, directed by Peter Sohn, and Disney animator and story artist, and it's kind of it went through a lot of phases. It was supposed to be directed by Bob Peterson, co-director of Up.
Which was a huge success.
Yeah, a huge success. He sort of. He kind of got lost in story. As Pixar says, they have this committee called the Brain Trust with John Lasseter and Brad Beard and everybody, and they decided that he got lost in the project. They removed him from the project and replaced him with Peter Sohn. That's one of the reasons we didn't see anything from this movie until now, and it's coming at the end of the year.
Wow. I'm just wondering what the term "got lost in the project" means.
Well, look, they work on these movies.
Like, who did I have a fight with, or did I?
No, they work on these movies for 5 years. You know, they start by storyboarding the whole thing, then storyboarding it again. They go through like 5-6 iterations of each movie, and sometimes they just kind of. They just kind of lose it.
I gotta say that first of all, Pixar, it looks amazing. I love the premise. It's kind of like Jurassic Park. Animated in some ways, but like a good Jurassic Park. And no, I mean, beautiful. Got lost in the project. That's the worst line for it to get fired with.
It looks to be very interesting, and we can only like judge it on
on its no.
Yeah,
and
because they've been good.
I will definitely go see it.
Yeah,
taking the kids, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, moving on to some sadder news. Rick Baker, who has been the top special effects makeup artist of the past 40 years, said he's retiring last week because he says there's no place for him anymore in Hollywood. He is almost 65 years old, and he says that in the last few projects, everything he has done has been replaced by CGI. He says the studio wants it fast and cheap, and I don't work that way, so I decided it's a good time. But this guy is amazing. Well, he's responsible for Men in Black. He's responsible for Thriller.
Wow.
Michael Jackson in Thriller.
Thriller was, listen, because I were alive when that came out.
Yeah.
And you weren't.
I was actually scared.
Yeah, no. It was groundbreaking. It was groundbreaking to the point of, seriously groundbreaking. What else? Wow.
His last project was Maleficent with
that was amazing
with Angelina Jolie. He was responsible for everything. It's a terrible movie.
Terrible.
He also did The Nutty Professor, which was some fine effects work. Let's watch maybe a bit of that trailer.
Let's please. This was the work of the man.
Your lip. What? Your lip is swollen. Now that is very nasty.
So Eddie Murphy as a fat man.
No, but I'm wondering then, guys like this, and few people understand and know what these professions mean, I think, for the film industry, and how incredibly important and how seriously the people who do them took them, and then to think that are there still any makeup artists left? That's what I'm asking you.
He's the last great one. Dick Smith, who was the first really big one of the modern era, died a few years ago. Rick Baker started as an assistant to Dick Smith. And so he's like the last of this legacy. And now they're moving a lot of things to CGI, which I think is terrible because there's nothing like the physical makeup on screen and on the actor on set to make them
on
feel...
the actor on set to help you as an actor to tap into your dare I say it, into your inner child.
Yeah.
But yes, as a daughter of thespians.
I think the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, which is a terrible movie,
but
had some of the best effects ever, makeup effects ever filmed. It's amazing. I think they look incredibly real.
And it is an art. Avi, I want to thank you. You drive us crazy, but we love you because you bring great stuff. Ami, don't forget to check us out, I-24 News Morning Edition on all these social networks, Facebook, Twitter, whatnot. Of course, tune in tomorrow morning for another edition of your morning edition that you have to tune into every single morning because you get to meet fabulous people like the ones sitting with me in studio. Have a great day.